Chapter 7. Hosts and Guests. Reg had been so absorbed in their conversation that he had ceased to notice the great void, but now he saw that the strange blue light had given place to a grassy hilltop. The three of them stood together, gazing down a winding path into a valley far below. Everywhere were masses of brilliant flowers, and his eyes travelled over the scene. Reg saw his friends approaching. Go to meet them. One of his guides gave him a little push, and with gay farewell he set off across the sloping hillside. They met amid the laughter and the cheerful greetings of the young, and Reg, responding heartily, could scarcely believe that he had died and that this was actually the other side of death. He linked arms with Gordon and Johnny, and the chattering group strode swiftly into the valley, making little of the long distance with their light swinging step. They went surging onto the green where many were engaged in sports, or with a companion in earnest talk. On the three sides of the green were the little houses of the plain between, with their hospitality, open fronts, and their great trees drooping over the slatted roofs. Reg noticed the exquisite mother of pearl of which they seemed to be composed, and exclaimed admiringly. Everyone was delighted to show him round, and he went in one house after another, thrilled, adventurous, and eager. Several of the houses were occupied by the purple-gowned, who resembled Gordon. These were quickly introduced, and all invited Reg to visit them whenever he liked. Here he met Derek with a special friend of Gordon's, and there was a house occupied by Stephen and James, who were being visited by their friends, Bernard and Janet. Reg noted that these four were robed in green and wore golden sashes. The room looked very gay with such variety of colour, and he felt almost a child in his simple white tunic. The only other wearer of white was a quiet woman named Rose. She made room for him beside her, and they soon forgot to compare the clothes of his companions, so absorbed did he become in the talk around him. He felt like an explorer in a strange land, as indeed he was. The most amazing places were discussed as though they were just around the corner. And these people seemed to live a life of constant adventure. Breathlessly listening, he heard of the delights of the Hall of Hobbies, of the lovely bowls they made there in the halls of metalworkers. Others said that they had just come from the Hall of Gardens, another from the Hall of Sleep, and one inquired for Richard, whom apparently he had last seen in the Hall of Audience. It sounded thrilling. In a very short time, or so it seemed to Reg, the little group broke up. There were some temporary farewells, and then Gordon came to take him to see his mates. He was very silent as he walked through the woods with his friends. All around him they were laughing and talking, but he was going over in his mind all he had heard. He felt excited and eager, yet strangely left out, as though he had missed something that all the others enjoyed. All the same, he had entirely revised his ideas of heaven. It had become a wholly delightful place. His musings were interrupted when they came out on the other side of the wood, where the creamy waves roared up the golden beach, and the sparkling sea went out to meet the sky. "There they are," said Gordon. At the same moment Reg caught sight of them sitting on the sand with their backs against a broad rock. "Oh, let's get to them quickly," he cried eagerly, but Gordon pushed him gently forward alone. "You go, Reg. It's you they wish to see." "Won't you come too?" Reg looked up appealingly, feeling suddenly embarrassed, but Gordon shook his head. "No, off you go, old man. Look, they have seen you." Even as he spoke, the men rose to their feet and stood smiling uncertainly. He went slowly forward to meet them. Silently they gripped his hands. Then one of them laughed nervously. "We don't quite know whether you're an angel or a man," he confessed. "An angel?" Reg protested. "Far from it, I am afraid." "What made you think of that, Paul?" "Well, you have died, I suppose." "Yes," urged Greg, while Ronald and Guy drew nearer. "That is what we want to know." "Oh, I can tell you that," Reg said with relief. "Sit down, chaps, and let us have a talk." They all settled down again, leaning against the rock. The waves rolled lazily up to their feet. "This place is not heaven, and it isn't earth," Reg began. It's called the plain between. Here people who have died can meet those who have not died, but have only left their bodies in sleep. What, after going into a trance? Guy queried. I always thought that was just rot. No, in ordinary sleep, I mean. That is what sleep is. It's the soul going out from the body, and sometimes people can come here. I thought you said only the soul came here. Ronald looked puzzled. But the soul is the person, Greg put in. Haven't you heard that? Yes, that's right. The body is a kind of envelope, and when it is left behind, either in death or in sleep, people can meet here, Reg explained. Why? Ronald still looked puzzled. They come because they have a strong wish to see somebody, or because there are things it is good for them to know. Then it prepares them for death. A little death, the angel said. Who said? Paul shut out the question in amazement. The other stared dumbly. The angel, Reg repeated. And then he laughed in embarrassment. Oh, I know it sounds strange, but you have no idea how friendly they can be. It all seems that all angels are close to men all the time, to guard them while they are on earth, and guide them in heaven. I say you've learned a lot. They looked at him with awe, and Reg said hastily, Tell me about yourselves. It all seems so far away, Paul gazed out to sea abstractedly. When we were there, that little bit of ground we were fighting on seemed the only world there was. Now it seems swell, just a little halting place on the way here. Knowing heaven really does exist makes it different somehow, sort of worth fighting for. Perhaps that's what we've come here to learn, Greg suggested. Makes you feel a bit uneasy, though, Ronald confessed. I guess there are a good many things I wish I had not done now. What about sins? Well, there has to be a reckoning, you know. Yes, Ronald agreed soberly. Was yours very bad? It hasn't come yet. Not come. The two of them spoke together. Greg said diffidently, I thought a judgment was necessary before a man could have the Lord's approval. What happened then when you saw him? There was a pause, tense and expectant. I've not seen him yet. You see, I wanted to see all of you first. How could I let you go on fighting, not knowing anything? They gazed at him solemnly, and Reg flushed. Well, how could I? He asked defiantly. Of course, it was decent of you to want to know about us, old man, he said. But how could you? Paul interrupted urgently. If I came to a kingdom and it was possible, I should want an audience with the king first. There was another pause while Reg prodded the sand miserably. Ronald leant over his shoulder to suggest reassuringly, I think it could have helped us more by going straight to him, Reg. You see, we are further away from him than you are. If he loves us, he would want us to get the reckoning over with quickly and come to him, wouldn't he? Yes, I suppose so. Reg looked more unhappy still, adding in a burst of confidence, But I don't know him. Never mind, Paul said. He knows us, perhaps. Reg, when we come next time, you will have seen him. Oh, I do hope so. Reg was surprised at his emphasis, but he suddenly realised why he had had that feeling of being left out. He was the only one of his heaven friends who had not sought an audience with the king. In the silence that followed, Reg thought over his new desire. What had Gordon said? We are chained to our wishes. Then, if he wished very hard to meet the Lord, he would be chained to that wish. Surely that would be a good thing. Surely that would link him to the Lord. Musing, he tried to picture that majestic one who walked with the fisherman so long ago. The figure seemed misty. He wished he had tried to love him a little on earth. That would have made him more familiar now. He was so lovable, really, so strong, gentle and wise, so sympathetic when people were miserable, ill or poor. Why had he never loved this one who was so worthy of love? My friends. A quiet voice broke into his thoughts, and he looked up to see Bernard in their midst. He smiled upon him indulgently. Follow me, for the time has come when the king visits his people. They all sprang to their feet in a kind of astounded panic. Does he come here? Shall we see him? But this is only the plain between. Their questions and exclamations tumbled out confusedly. He comes to his people every evening, Bernard explained. Yes, here in the plain between. Let us join the people in the avenue and wait for him. As they walked, Reg drew nearer and plucked at Bernard's sleeve. "Shall I see him?" he whispered. His companion smiled. "My son, the measure of our seeing is the measure of our love." Chapter 8. Bernard's Story. The King's Visit. I could not keep the eagerness out of my step as we made our way toward the green, but swiftly as I walked, Reg kept pace with me, glancing up at me at intervals with a troubled look. Searching into his mind, I saw the reason. Poor fellow, he was doubting his ability to see the king, doubting the measure of his love. I threw out a mind message to Stephen, explaining that I would take charge of Reg myself. Janet, I knew, had already sensed it and was walking with Rose. Stephen replied that he and James, together with Gordon and Derek, would take care of the others between them, and they quietly formed into two small groups as we stepped onto the velvet grass. The avenue had already formed, so, linking arms, I led my companion to the end of the double line, signing him to stand before me. No one spoke. All were listening for the familiar, well-loved sounds. Although it was by no means new to me, my heart thrilled with exultation, even as it had on that first occasion which now seemed so long ago. What a wonderful scene it was. Many of the people were clad in white, but here and there were tunics of purple, green, gold and blue. One tall fellow looked splendid in a robe of leafy brown-like, an autumn shade of earth. It was heavily embroidered with an intricate design in gold. I made room for him respectfully, grateful to be near one of such high degree. As for the children, they were dressed in every pastel shade I had ever seen. They looked like busy little angels, for they ran lightly up and down the avenue, scattering apple blossom until they had prepared a thick, fragrant carpet to welcome their king. Presently, a faint sound of music came to our ears. Instantly, everyone was alert. The children ran to their places in the front line on the other side of Reg, who turned to question me with an awed, excited glance. "He comes," I whispered. Gradually the volume of sound increased. 4 angels appeared, taking up a position on the corners of the green, and lifting up their gleaming instruments. They sent forth mighty bugle notes. At this signal, a great throng of angels surged forward, coming 2 by 2 and spreading out behind the ranks of people. They were chanting, and the joy in their ringing tones set my heart beating, hard with loving expectation. Suddenly the sound ceased, and in the silence one of the angels cried, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." Then all the angels chanted, "He suffers the children to come unto him, for he is the king of heaven's realm." A moment later the whole multitude fell upon their knees, for he whom they loved had come. Ah, beloved master, never shall I grow tired of seeing him walk down the flower-strewn avenue. I feasted my eyes upon him. Even Reg was forgotten. Robed in crimson, he came slowly down between the ranks of kneeling people, his hand raised in blessing. Once more the bugle sounded, then the angels began to sing again. "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God of hosts, heaven and earth are full of thy glory." He reached them. The people bowed low, raising their heads when he had passed, to join in the angels' song, "Holy, holy, holy." A little child stretched out a hand to him, and he pressed it between his own. Passing, he ruffled a tiny curly head. "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God of hosts." Would he never come? My gaze never left him. I stored in my memory every gesture, every shade of expression, every smile. I watched him pass Janet and Rose. I saw one of the children pick up a handful of petals, press them to her lips, smile and scatter them under his feet. At last I too bowed low. I heard the gentle swish of his garments and felt the strong currents of his love. Glancing up, I saw him look at Reg, bless him and pass on. My throat ached with the intensity of my song. "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God of hosts, heaven and earth are full of thy glory." I stood motionless after the master had gone, gazing into the wood where I had last seen a glimpse of his robe. Now all was still. The angels had gone. The people were drifting away in little groups. Reg pulled at my sleeve, drawing my attention to himself. Did he really come? It seemed kind of holy, like being in church. Was that all, Reg? I felt comforted and strong, but oh, if only I had seen him. The hunger in his voice filled my heart with joy, and I cried warmly, "Cheer up, old man. You have taken the first step towards him today." "How?" "By responding to his love. Have you not heard? He draws us with cords of love." From the edge of the green I saw Janet waving farewell to Rose, and I at once started off in her direction. "Come along, Reg, and see our house now." Chapter 9. The Feast. Silently we three walked across the green, and there, where the waves left a gleaming line on the golden sand, we turned toward our house. All was peace. The mellow green light filled the little sanctuary. A pink chestnut, perpetually in bloom, brooded over the roof and graced the veranda where we settled for our talk. Reg, sighing with content, flung himself down on the yielding softness of the floor, turning his head so that he could look far out to sea. "How lovely this is! Almost I could believe I had earned it, and I could stay here, I wish," he broke off musing. "What do you wish, Reg?" Janet asked softly. She had not joined us yet, but was moving about inside. I heard the chink of the fruit bowls and knew that she was preparing food for our guest. "I wish it could be hurried," he confessed at last. "Seeing everyone so happy, even those who still have no degree, who apparently are not fully appointed yet, makes me realise that there is nothing to fear." "Love reigns," I explained. "Yes, that makes everything so different. Sort of changes all one had ever thought about sins and the reckoning. Then my mates," he flushed, "they could not even understand why I wanted to see them first." I saw the poor fellow was hurt and said hastily, "That is natural, Reg, if you come to think of it. To them you are in a privileged position. You have passed through death's door, not merely looked through it. You are like an explorer who returns from a foreign country and says he saw nothing of the beauties and wonders because he spent the time sleeping." Reg laughed, and I watched his hurt melt away with thankfulness. "I see what you mean. Yes, I suppose they would find it hard to understand." After a moment he added, "What a fool I have been. It is so hard sometimes to let go of earth when we first come here," Janet observed placidly, adding in a matter-of-fact tone, "Now we will eat and forget all problems for a while." Reg's look astounded, springing up to help her bring in the bowls of fruit. "Why, do you know, I haven't eaten anything since I came, and I haven't noticed it. I ought to have been famished. Why was that?" "Food is not an essential in order to sustain life here," I explained. "It's just a refreshment." Janet handed me a pile of bread stems and I put them down beside the fruit. "What about something to drink?" "I have it here." She brought out a great jug of crushed fruit juice and 3 sparkling glasses. Reg surveyed the feast with delight. "If it's as good as it looks." "It's better," I smiled. We all three settled down companionably. "Help yourself." Janet poured some of the fruit juice into the glasses, and we each took one. I held mine up to the light. "You never seem to tire of doing that," Janet teased. She and Reg were already sipping theirs. "No." I turned the glass slowly round and watched the colours separate and merge again. It always fascinates me. How can the different juices separate like that and yet be one liquid? Perhaps they do not really separate. Perhaps it is merely the colours. "Merely the colours," Reg laughed. He was holding up his half-empty glass. "I have never seen anything like it." "What colours can you see?" asked Janet with interest. "Well, I think I can see the deep purple of the grape, yes, and a kind of ivory tint that might be bee nectarine. Yes, go on, you're doing splendidly. Then I can see a thick, creamy colour. Now, what could that be?" We waited a while, and then I said, "Banana." "Oh, yes." "Yet surely the juices of fruits do not keep their characteristic colour so clearly." That is why I said the colours separate and merge again into the juices. I think perhaps the colours of heaven are more living, every tint being visible to the eye. Oh, what a place for artists heaven is. You're right. Reg still held his glass before his eyes. Go on, Janet urged. Slave driver. I was delighted to see Reg so much at his ease. Well, there is a deep ruby here. I should say raspberry, or one of the rich plums. Both are there. Oh, only a little plum juice in comparison with the raspberry. Any red currants? Yes, that's right. Almost scarlet tint and pinkish tone. Strawberry, Reg cried in triumph. Yes, but what of the golden shade? Janet asked. They are much more difficult to recognise. Reg puckered his brow. I can see one almost the colour of your sash. Might be melon or pineapple. I say, you are good at colours. That is pineapple, one of those very ripe ones, almost dripping with juice. Any more? Wait a minute. Reg began to examine his glass again, but Janet said laughingly, what a shame to tease you. That is the end of the recipe. So you have recipes here? They perfect them in the Hall of Food. There, all those who have creative instinct and the desire to prepare, arrange and perfect food work there as long as they like. This apparently reminded Janet of the fruit, for she offered the bowls to Reg, saying gaily, make your choice. Reg gazed at the fruit in wonder. It's perfect. He touched a bloom on a great purple grape, rubbed his fingertips against the glossy skin of a red and gold apple, gently pressed a huge peach, and finally picked up a melon. It looks like the sun on a winter's morning. So it does. Janet chose a brilliant red apple with fine ivory streaks running downward. I started on the raspberries. For a while we ate in silence, watching the soothing ebb and flow of the waves. A tree leaning from the cliffs swayed gently, and the golden sand took on a deeper hue where the tide receded. The sky was the deepest blue I'd ever seen it here, the sea even deeper, but near the shore it faded into that peculiarly pale tint of green, like spring leaves only half unfurled. What a riot of colour it was! Earth seemed a drab, cold place when one could bring one's mind to think of it all. Presently we offered Reg some of the bread stems. He declared that they were just like the crisp brown rolls that his favourite calf had made at home. When we explained that they grew everywhere and only needed to be snapped off, he was astonished. It hardly seems necessary to cook anything here. It's not necessary at all, I explained. Do you mean nothing is ever cooked? You sound regretful, I smiled. Well, he confessed, I've always loved cooking smells. That is, coming in hungry from a long tramp and opening the kitchen door, you know. Janet gave a little smile. Well, Reg, you can have your cooking, if that's all you want. In the Hall of Food it's quite easy to raise the temperature at certain spots. Here many savoury dishes are prepared. These are for the children in the Hall of Children, you know, in certain parts of the Hall of Friends, and, of course, for anyone who wants them. After a while, of course, when we have climbed towards the heights and have degrees, we lose our interest in food, except for very rare occasions. I suppose we become too busy and happy to remember. Oh, I can quite understand that, Reg agreed. But just at first makes one feel at home, you know. However, this feat would take a lot of beating. Chapter 10. The Wish Expressed. Thus we continued our talk. It was a great pleasure to have Reg's company, and the plan forming or infused in my mind was very much to my taste. Janet, who could of course follow my thoughts, thoroughly approved. Reg, all unconscious, talked on or lay with his hands under his head, gazing out to sea. That is one of my special joys, he said at last, pointing to the beach. I have always been a strong swimmer. Shall I be able to swim here? Of course you will, Janet assured him, adding, with a glance in my direction, why not have a dip now? Really? Reg leapt to his feet. He looked like a boy just out of school, and I nodded my agreement at once. Off you go, old man. He did not wait for a second invitation, but dashed down to the beach, threw off his tunic and dived in. There was a ripple, and then no sign of him for quite a while. Just as we were beginning to look about in bewilderment, his head broke the surface a long way out, and a gleaming arm rose high to wave at us. "It's great!" his young voice rang in the air joyously. I cupped my hands around my mouth and shouted, "Stay as long as you like, Mr. Fish. We shall be waiting." With the final wave he was off, and we watched his head moving swiftly. "He is a dear boy," Janet said with a maternal air. "Do you think he is beginning to awake?" "I am sure of it." For a long time we said nothing. Looking out over the sparkling sea, our thoughts intermingled. In that restful time, the plan was built up between us, each of us adding a little, so that when Reg returned we were ready and waiting. We saw his gleaming body rise out of the sea a little way down the beach, and presently he came springing up the sloop. His tunic flung negligently around him, and lay down at our feet with a deep sigh of content. "I've been thinking," he said drowsily. "Out there, one's thoughts seem to flow so easily as the sea, in a kind of rhythm." "Reg, are you poetic?" Janet teased. He laughed and tossed the damp hair out of his eyes. "No, but seriously, I have been thinking." "Tell us if you wish," I invited. "Oh, I do want to." Reg sat up and clasped his hands around his knees. "It has been growing in my mind ever since I met Goody Gordon in the Hall of Friends." He broke off abruptly, and I said gently, "What has been growing?" "I wish to see him. It was awful." He turned to me impulsively. "Kneeling beside you on the green, knowing that you could see him and I could not. Why, even the children could see him." "The children more clearly than any," Janet agreed. "They are simple and innocent, you see. Remember, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." "Oh, I do want to be pure." Now there was an urgency in Reggie's voice that almost bordered on panic. "Only—" "Well, you can be, old fellow," I said quickly. "Can I?" He looked puzzled but hopeful. "But if I haven't been, if there are things I've done—" "They are stains on your robe, but robes can be cleansed, you know." "How? And what do you mean by robe? And do you mean that we are cleansed without us doing anything?" His words tumbled over themselves in his eagerness. Chapter 11. The plan unfolded. "Suppose we take one question at a time," I suggested. "Of course, the love of God won us a place in heaven, if we believe that and accept it. How can we accept it, even if we do believe? Suppose you're sitting by a pool of water and you were splashed with mud. Just sitting there would not make you clean, would it? You would have to use the water and wash in it. Yes? That is what we do about our divine inheritance," I explained. "By believing in it and accepting it, we are allowed to come here." "But that doesn't make me clean," Reg protested. "Then how?" I glanced at Janet and she said quietly, "You have not made use of the water in the pool yet." Reg looked into our faces, his own expression alternate puzzlement and hope. "Do you mean there is anything I have to do?" "Yes," Janet continued. "The fruits of the inheritance are there for all. Each one has to partake of them by making reparation, by making amends, as it were, for every wrong he has done to another or to himself. If he tries to do or give some good in its place, in this way we unite ourselves to God and share in his perfection. When all our reparation is done, our robe is clean." Oh, now that is something I can understand. It seems so right, so fair, so just what he would do. "Oh, you're beginning to see him as a king of love," I exclaimed. "It is his love that gives us the comfort of giving a good in the place of evil. He takes us, as it were, into his confidence." There was a silence, and then Janet quoted, "Come now, and let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be made as white as snow, and if they be red as crimson, they shall be as white as wool." "You are giving me hope." Reg was smiling now. "Somehow I thought that all applied to our lives on earth, but that when we came here there was nothing to be done." Remember always that you are here because of his worth, not because of your worth. So these words do not apply to our lives on earth. If we do not accept him in our hearts while we live on earth, how can we acknowledge him as our King in heaven? There are many who have not thought very much about their God while on earth, yet in their hearts they have accepted him, and those he receives. And then he lets them help them cleanse their robe. Reg marvelled. Oh, now I see what you mean by his love. But what of those who have never accepted him, even in their hearts? They have cast away for the time their robe, their wedding garment, I said sorrowfully. Oh, is that the robe you speak about? Reg asked. I remember hearing that story. Now tell me, how can I help to get mine clean? You can never guess how eager I am to begin. I think we can. If you really want to make up for lost time, we can start our journey to the hall of reception, where you have to begin. Then, on the way, we can outline the plan to you. Oh, that will be capital. Reg sprang up, eager to be off. I could scarcely recognise the unawakened newcomer in this vital lad. He took a last look at his beloved sea, and then we sped off once more toward the great void. As we passed into the great expanse of blue light, Janet and I began unfolding of the plan, and Reg listened with deep attention. First we described our own arrival and how we each had desired to meet the king, then the pause before the gates and the revelation of the stained condition of our robes. It's not that you cannot enter through the gates, Janet explained. They are open wide, but with the knowledge of your stained wedding garment, you do not want to enter. Suppose I still wanted to, Reg queried, and I recalled that I had asked this same question of my angels. Reaching out for the memory of their reply, I quoted, You will be allowed to enter if you desired. Some do enter, even with robes more stained than yours, but then the holy ones are the only partially discerned, as though clothed in many veils, for purity is the only perfect vision there is. Gradually, these come to realize their blindness, and then, making inquiries of their guides, they learn the cause. It is not long before they too wish to leave the gates. Was that why I could not see the master when he visited the plain between? Reg asked. Yes. I thought you said that seeing was measured by love. It is. Janet made it quite clear by adding, if we love him very much, we want to be clean. So it is our love that makes the clear vision possible. I see. Reg pondered a while, and then he said, Tell me how I begin my term of reparation. Chapter 12. The plan begun. First of all, we will take you to the hall of reception to meet your angels again, I explained, and then they will take you to the gates so that you can see the exact state of your robe. That is awful, isn't it? Reg asked with a pitiful look. It is not easy, I admitted, but think, whether you see your robe or not does not alter the fact of the stains. If you are humble enough to face them, you have taken the first step towards the cleansing. Yes, I see that. Then what happens? Well, after you have seen, as it were, a review of all the faults and offences of your whole life, the angels have a conference with you. They go carefully into each and decide what can be done to give good for evil. Thus, if there is a man you have wronged, you go to the hall where he is, and there you offer him your services or do him some kindness. When you have made what amends you can, you have used the water in the pool, to go back to our earlier illustration. Then the stain is washed from your robe. Suppose the man is not in one of the halls. Suppose he is still on earth. I thought you would ask that. Well, then the man angel, who is called the earth guide, goes to earth and imparts an angelic benediction in place of the good you wish to do. Oh, then what if the man is very advanced and has gone beyond the halls? You are thinking hard, Janet put in approvingly. Well, I have already talked a little with the angels and with Gordon. In the case you mention, I replied, the woman angel, who is called the heaven guide, visits the man in your stead. Usually, the heaven guide goes with you through the halls on your term of reparation. But, in gratitude to the angels, I had offered to take you myself. I say, that is good of you. Somehow I've grown so used to you, and then having that feast in your house, and then the grand swim afterwards, has made me feel that I belong. So you do, Janet agreed. You are our own special charge, and we feel privileged to be able to serve you. Why? I could not help admiring his humility, and said, We have not forgotten that you willingly laid down your life for your friends on the battlefield. Oh, I was not the only one, Reg protested, and Janet said quickly, No, and every one of them will be rewarded. Love covereth a multitude of sins. That is what the angel said. You are going to be so happy. What, while I'm on the term of reparation? I felt just as surprised, but you shall see. Remember that a penitent one is a very beautiful sight to heaven eyes. The text says, There shall be joy in heaven over one sinner that repenteth. Oh, you are going to be happy indeed, and your joy will grow and grow. Reg relaxed then, and mused smilingly on all that was to be. Janet and I respected his silence, and we did not speak again until the great sweep of the hall of reception was visible beneath our feet. Gradually, the river, which had appeared like a mere thread, lay broad and shining across the valley, and with my extended heaven sight, I could clearly see the angels waiting to welcome us. Here we are. He looked around eagerly, and we began to walk across the grass. How familiar it seems, yet how far I have travelled since I saw it last, he exclaimed, adding with a twinkle, I mean that I have travelled in learning as well as in distance. Laughing, we came up to the two angels. Greetings! They clasped us each on the shoulder in turn, and then while we walked among the flowers up the gentle slope out of the valley, I told them that I had prepared Reg and would leave him in their charge. Aren't you coming too? He asked a trifle wistfully. No, old man. Janet and I are going visiting, but the instant you are ready for me, I shall come to you. I know how you will get the message, he laughed. By thought, I have learnt about that. Splendid. I gave his shoulder a friendly squeeze and Janet hugged him. It won't be long, she whispered. Remember, you have all eternity to enjoy the happiness that is to come. I know. I am just beginning to realise that. And he set off with his angel guides. Chapter 13. The Wedding Garment. When, at last, I was summoned to meet Reg again, I noticed a great change in him. He was quieter, yet he held a suggestion of strength and secret joy that I found most attractive. As we sat together with our backs against a convenient tree, he said with a twinkle, You think I am altered, don't you? I was astonished, for up to now Reg had scarcely shown any ability for the receiving of thoughts. How do you know that? I countered. Just felt it. Must be something to do with that exchange of thought one of the boys described. Couldn't get the hang of it until now. That is because you are growing. As you learn and grow, these gifts of heaven come to you naturally. When I say gifts, I do not mean that you win them by an effort of your own. They are for everyone. You just grow into them, as it were. Well, it's very pleasant. Feels companionable, you know? Yes. On earth people suffer all kinds of sorrows and pains because they cannot understand the other fellow's point of view. Words do not always make it clear. Consequently, many feel isolated. That is the effect of the barrier of the physical body, which shuts them off from all other physical bodies, like water in a number of bottles. Here the water flows together in one bowl. And yet there is the mental veil. I heard about that. Oh yes, heaven would not be a peaceful place if everyone's thoughts intermingled whether they wished it or not. The mental veil is voluntary, though, and can be lifted at any time. On the way, Reg explained that he had to visit one of his mates, Robbie. It appeared that Robbie had lent him some money during their military training. In the excitement of being moved up to the front and subsequent fighting and fatigue, Robbie had forgotten the loan. Reg, thinking himself fortunate, said nothing more about it, and then Robbie died. It gave me a shock to see how that had stained my robe. It is one of the sad aspects of earth life. Men think that if they can evade a debt, it is smart business. How mistaken they are. If they did but know it, the smartest business is to try to avoid any staining of the robe and to try to help on its cleaning by making amends whenever they can. I suppose they are only thinking of the earth life. Then what happens there seems more important than what will happen here. That is it, I agreed. They choose to forget that time on earth is strictly limited. One time in heaven is unlimited. Yet how clearly the Master has taught them. Tell me what he said. I quoted, "Lay not up yourselves to treasures on earth, where the rust and the moth consume, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither the rust nor the moth doth consume, and where thieves do not break through nor steal." I wonder why men pay so little heed to that. Possibly because where thy treasure is, thy heart is also, I rejoined. We were silent after that, while Reg looked about him in great interest. As I drew near to the Hall of Adventure, we caught sight of the great mountain up which I had seen so many climbing long ago. Even now I could see a few figures, and I drew Reggie's attention to them. He was delighted to find that he could also use his extended heaven sight. It is like having a magnificent pair of field glasses. I can even see the faces of some of them, how they are enjoying their climb. Later on we passed over a desert, the sun on the vast expanse of sand being almost dazzling to our eyes. Then we skirted a storm, and Reg was amazed to be able to look down on the black thunderclouds and flashing lightning without being in any way affected. After passing over a great forest, so dark that we could not even glimpse within, we came to a mighty ocean, which at its nearest point lay smooth and shining, and at its farthest was lashed in tremendous, foaming waves. Very soon we began to alight, and then Reg cried out in wonder, "There are people walking on the sea!